Hello. Hope everyone is having a great week. I wanted to hop on tonight to talk weekend strategies, dining out, and social situations. I posted a question, I think it was early this morning, regarding this topic, and I will also post a question in the comments of this video. I will additionally be posting some links in the comments of this video, and then probably one other post with an infographic on weekend strategies. So all of that is coming your way. Sorry I'm hopping on so late here tonight. It has just been a long day. So first of all, I just want to check in and also thank you all for participation. I've been receiving a lot of emails and questions from many of you, texts as well. So it's been a really great start. I know tracking macros is kind of a lot of learning, right? You're learning a lot about just your eating habits, learning the challenges of, maybe you're not having as much protein as you thought you were. Maybe your fats are a little higher than expected, but everyone is super engaged and it's been a lot of fun working with all of you so far. All right, so getting into the topic of the video, having a strategy for the weekend. And I think the most important part about heading into the weekend is you basically need to have a plan. So just like we need a plan for our week, we also need a plan for our weekend. So many of you already have a really great plan for the week. You know what your work week looks like. You kind of know your schedule. You have a really predictable schedule, maybe. You have your routine down. The weekend gets a little bit trickier for many of us in the sense that you could have some extra stuff and some surprises, particularly just activities that you don't have necessarily every weekend. And then the social stuff comes up, right? So first and foremost, go into your weekend with a plan. So tonight or earlier tomorrow, look at what you have planned for the weekend. What does it look like for you? You may be eating fewer times. You may notice that over the weekends you start to eat less because your schedule is different and you have large chunks of time blocked out for events. I see this happen with clients often where they have a really busy weekend day and it's hard to fit their macros in. They're not eating quite as often, so not as much and not meeting the numbers. So if you are out and about, when you would normally be eating your snacks during the week, the times of the day, maybe you should be planning 3 larger meals in the weekend. These are just some ideas. Secondly, going into the weekend, I want you to plan, and when you leave the house, do not leave the house hungry, okay? Strategy number 2. So this is going to save you a lot in the long run. Even if you're going out to eat or to a party or a dinner party or something like that, I would like you to try to not go to those events on an empty stomach. So if you go somewhere, you have to make too many decisions, right? But if you're going somewhere and you're not hungry, that's one less decision you have to make. When you do leave the house, make sure that you have snacks with you. And in case you get stuck somewhere or you get stuck talking to somebody or there's an unpredictable detour that you have to take and you have to run an errand or something like that, you have those snacks on hand. I have also been known to take out a snack when the restaurant's really busy and we're waiting for food and things like that. Rather than munching on the bread or whatever's on the table. So snacks, very important. Try not to fly by the seat of your pants. Bring your beef jerky or your protein bars, almonds. Just be mindful of the fats in those nuts. Maybe even a small little meal, some shredded chicken or something like that. This is going to help you in the long run. So it's all about you being in control of that weekend, right? Okay, so say your plan for the weekend is to go out. So I want to touch on eating out. Let's have a a plan, obviously, for eating out. And when you plan your meal out, see if you can have a little bit of control over that situation. Again, we're trying to minimize the number of decisions that we're making on the fly. So when you go out to eat, there's a good chance that you're probably going to have more fat and more carbohydrates in those meals. So if you are going out to eat, and you know you are, my recommendation is to only eat one meal in that day out, and then the rest on your own. So try to avoid multiple meals in one day that are eating out. Know where you're going to go and see if you can look at the menu in advance. These are all just reminders. These are things you know, but maybe haven't thought of in a while. As you look at the menu in advance, maybe try logging the food that you think you're going to eat in MyFitnessPal ahead of time. Know that your dinner could potentially look like option A, B, or C. Log those things, figure out what you want to eat. So let's plan. When you plug that meal into your MyFitnessPal, that gives you a better guide of what the rest of your day needs to look like leading up to that dinner, right? If you can be in charge of where you're going out to dinner, I highly recommend that. See if you can be the one to make that decision. Sometimes you can't. I realize that. Sometimes that's where the group is going. You go, you look ahead, see if you can figure out something on the menu, plug it in, and plan ahead. Once you get to that restaurant, say you're going somewhere that is local, they don't have their menu online, it's different every night, something like that. My best advice to you is to stick with a protein, vegetables. I'm not saying only go for the salad. I'm really not. Most places have a protein, a lean protein, and then you can sub sides for vegetables. So you can basically find that anywhere. When I say lean proteins, we've talked a lot about proteins in the past week, but I'm talking the chicken, salmon, shrimp, tofu, pork chop, lean beef cuts, fish, those things. Identify those proteins on the menu. When you choose your side, my recommendation is to opt for the vegetable side. And this is really just following the 5 habits, right? One of the 5 habits is to make sure that each meal contains a protein, and each meal contains vegetables, right? Those are 2 of our 5 habits. So I would also try to find options where there's maybe not a lot of sauce on them. When you're eating out, cream sauces, they can be loaded with those fats. It's also very difficult to track them. So try to stay away from those cream sauces if you can, unless you've accounted for it, okay? So I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that toward the end of this talk. Nothing is really off limits, but if you're walking into a situation, you're not sure what you're going to order, recommendation is to avoid those cream sauces. Make your decisions wisely. You may also want to consider doubling up on protein when eating out. Sometimes the protein portions can be a little bit small. Really good example of this is like a Chipotle or a Qdoba or something like that. I will often add extra chicken or, an extra protein, whatever protein source you have selected. In that Chipotle scenario, I will typically order no beans, no rice, and I'll do vegetables. I get it. You want some kind of rice. You want some kind of carb in your meal sometimes. Maybe easy on the rice and opt out of the beans or something like that. These are just recommendations. Get as many vegetables in that bowl wherever you're eating out as possible. Add vegetables if you'd like. Chipotle is really easy. Tokyo Joe's is very easy. You can basically customize any bowl there. Choose places that are going to suit your needs, basically. There's some great local places as well, that you can build your own bowl, that type of scenario. Those are great places, super macro friendly, fit within your goals and where you're trying to head. So I would also recommend staying perhaps away from bread or chips. These can tend to kind of zap your carbs budget. I talk about budget a lot with macros, but bread or chips, sometimes we can kind of overindulge in those things. This is a great opportunity as well to, grab that snack you brought instead. So try to stay clear of those carbs before the meal, unless you've already accounted for it. And I'm going to throw that out there. I'm not saying don't. I'm really not saying don't on any of these topics. So cocktails and wine. So recommendation here is to choose cocktails or dessert. Try not to double up. I get it, special occasions, birthdays, anniversaries, those things come up. And that's all fine. These are all just suggestions. If you're going out to eat, maybe opt for the cocktail or the dessert. If you say, okay, I know I want to have that pasta at that restaurant with that Alfredo sauce, it's amazing, that's why we go there, that is just fine, okay? Let's not eat all of it, maybe. Eat slowly, eat to 80% full. If you have trouble stopping, maybe you order this dish and decide that you want to share it with the person you're with. It's all about balance, really. Nothing is off limits, but we're trying to balance and make adjustments so that we can get closer toward our goals. The last other eating out tip that I want to throw out there is don't be afraid to special order. I know I felt like this can be like a pain to whoever is taking my order or whoever's working at the restaurant. It turns out that these places are typically pretty used to it, and protein and veggies and the special order that we're coming up with here is really pretty reasonable. So don't be afraid to special order your meals. If you are going to someone's house, this can be a little bit trickier sometimes, right? There's a little bit less options. So number one, just like I said before when I was talking weekend planning, try not to leave the house hungry, okay? See if you can figure out what is being eaten ahead of time. And the way to kind of subtly do this is give your friend a call, see what they're going to be serving that night and ask if there's something you can bring. So, reaching out to see what is being eaten, to see if you can provide a side dish or something like that. This is kind of 2 wins stacked. You know what you might be eating, and then you also have control over one of the side dishes, and you can bring something that fits within your plan there. The other thing about eating at somebody's house is try not to position yourself where the food is. So people often congregate in the kitchen. That's where the food is, the dips, all of that. Reposition yourself somewhere else if that's going to be a temptation for you. And I think it is a temptation for most of us. When you're in a social setting, be mindful of alcohol. When I first started tracking macros, and alcohol will be another topic that I will share with you probably tomorrow, actually, it can help to just have something else in your hand. What I was going to say was when I first started tracking macros, I had a pretty big goal in mind, quite a bit of weight to lose at the time, and for me, alcohol was very hard. This was one of the hardest things for me, just because I had a lot of social things to attend. And I felt like if I wasn't drinking, like how was I supposed to participate? I had to kind of, in order to meet the goals, lofty goals that I had set, but achievable, I had to actually walk away from alcohol for about 10 months. That is not at all what I'm saying you need to do, not even a little bit. But I did learn a few things about how to kind of deal with that along the way. One of the things that I became very familiar with was the mocktail. And it's like sparkling, my mocktail of choice anyway was like sparkling water with a little splash of kombucha in a wine glass, very important, with some ice. So, find that macro-friendly drink that works for you, whether it is or is not alcohol. I was talking with a client the other day about wine, and we'll talk about tracking alcohol this weekend, and there's a little bit of math that goes with it. But how do you make a lower calorie wine or cocktail? And recommendation there is to turn it into a spritzer. Use sparkling water or something like that. You can actually combine wine and sparkling water, make it a wine spritzer. So there's a lot of different things you can do. But if you are in a social setting and there's drinking, just be mindful of alcohol. Maybe opt for a soda water or water or something like that. And have something in your hand, whatever that is, because we're all standing there. We're standing near the kitchen. We're standing near the food. We have our hand on the alcohol, typically. Maybe you have your hand on a glass of water, but you've got something in your hand. You're participating. You're part of it. There's no fear of missing out or anything like that. And then that way, also, if you have something in your hand, people aren't continuously asking you if you need a drink or you need something. You don't feel like you're missing out. I also wouldn't really worry about what other people are thinking. And I know that's way harder to do than it is to say. But typically people are not actually paying attention to what you are doing as much as you feel like they are paying attention to what you're doing. That's just the reality of it. So if you feel like you're kind of gaining a lot of pressure, why aren't you drinking? Whatever people want to ask, maybe ask them a question about themselves. That's, tends to usually work. People really like to talk about themselves. So alcohol is a tricky thing, and we'll go more into that. But be mindful of that. If you are you like gathering people together for social settings, my other recommendation is to have people at your house. Then you have complete control. You are inviting the people over. You know what your main dishes are. You can control the sides a little bit better. It's really, when it comes to social situations, the more control and the less decisions you have to be making, the better. So you can go out to eat. You can have dinner parties. You can go to activities. I want you to remember that you are not on a diet. You are making choices that align with your goals. I don't want you to feel like you're the only person in your friend group that is restricting yourself or on a diet or something like that. We're taking a different approach. We're making choices toward our goals. One other thing that I think is really important to touch on when it comes to the weekends, and I had a couple people ask me in this group about this, is what is my stance on cheat meals? Some plans do cheat meals. I am actually not really a believer in cheat meals, and I don't recommend it in the macro world and this particular nutrition approach. It puts a label on foods as either a good food or a bad food, and then that can also associate a positive or negative value to foods. And obviously, we don't need more emotion associated with foods than we already have. Most of us associate food with emotions, how we're feeling, our level of stress, that kind of thing. This is why I'm not really big on cheat meals. If you have what some people would consider a cheat meal, I want you to consciously be making that decision. This is really important. I don't want you to feel guilty. Rather, let's own the decisions that we're making. So say you have made the decision that you are going to go out with your friends tonight. You're going to have a giant burrito. It is going to be packed with cheese and beans and all the stuff that you love. You're going to do it. Okay? So if you're going to do it, I want you to think, okay, I'm going to make that decision. I'm going to own that decision. I honor your decision as Leanne. I honor your decision, and you are the one making that decision. You own that decision and whatever comes with that decision. You do not feel guilty about that. You can't work it off. You're not going to be able to go to the gym tomorrow and run it off or strength train and, make up for it. I don't want you to think about it as exercising it off. On the flip side, I also don't want to associate food with a reward for exercising. If you want something to eat that is what one would consider a cheat meal, I want you to own that decision. You're the only one that's in charge of those decisions, and go back to thinking about your why. Why are you doing all of this? What are you trying to accomplish? And is eating this going to get you closer to your goals? So I'm not saying don't do it, don't eat it. I only ask you to own the decision. Okay? It's up to you. If you are tracking macros, the really nice part about these like cheat meals or kind of overindulging is you can actually plan for it. And that's something that really, what am I trying to say? That's something that really appeals to me about tracking macros is nothing is off limits. And if you make it fit, you make it fit. You plan for it, right? All right. Let's see. Yeah, and just to drive that home, if you are tracking macros, you can fit in really basically anything you want. And then if you're not tracking macros for some reason, or you've decided not to, or it's not right for you, go back to your 5 habits. So eating to 80% full, eating slowly, make sure there's a protein, make sure there are vegetables, and then pretty much certainly there will be fats in those cheat meals. So you'll be following all the 5 habits. So if you have any other questions about weekends, let me know. Or if something comes up and you're like, hey, how should I deal with this? Post it in the comments or shoot me an email. I will also, like I said, post in the comments here. There's this blog that I have referenced prior on food options at some of the popular chain restaurants if you're kind of trying to figure out eating out. It was pretty helpful for me when I first started tracking. And then I'll post a couple of questions as well. So have a great weekend. We'll be in touch tomorrow again. And I've got a lot more information coming for you. You're doing the work and you all have so much to be proud of. And I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.